It's hers.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I'm making this video because I'm at the point where I have to really make this video, and I want to address this very, very simply. And I want people to understand that everyone else has a rightful to their own opinion, but at the same time, when I get people try to argue with my arguments, or legitimately try to fight my arguments, instead of just sitting there and saying, you know what, I don't agree with you, but I respect your opinion. The reason why I say this is because during Monday Night Raw, I tweeted saying the AEW Women's Division is better than WWE's. And now, that's my own fair opinion. Am I wrong? Was I wrong in what I said? But look, I'm not trying to say that, that tweet got a lot of negativity or a lot of hate. I'm not trying to say that at all. It really didn't. It didn't, which I'm surprised it didn't. Because I fully expected it to get a lot of flack and a lot of hate. But somehow it didn't. But, of course, it did rattle a few people. It only rattled a couple of people. Well, one person in particular, obviously, but I'm more making this video just in case other people, just so that other people can understand simple understanding. It's not that hard to understand that everyone has a different opinion in their own way. Like, instead of just saying, you know what, I may not agree with that opinion, but I respect it. But when you have people trying to fight your arguments and they say, well, I disagree with you for reason A. Here's reason A why I disagree with you. Here's reason B why I disagree with you. Here's reason C. You know, when you try to argue my point, and then and so he literally got so offended and overreacted to what I said, and it blows my mind how people just can't just accept a simple opinion and just walk away. They have to be all like, oh, but, you know, I don't agree because of reason A or reason B. And a few of the reasons that he gave were really darn stupid. The reasons were really darn stupid. Saying Britt Baker and Sheeta aren't on TV. Or, oh, Anna Jay is being treated like a jobber. Or Saraya is just doing nothing but segments every week. But wasn't I told? But, you know, that last one stuck to me the most. And here's why. It's because that is the exact same excuse that I've seen a lot of other people use. They're like, well, just because, you know, I've said that about Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae. They're just in segments and they're rarely ever used. And then people's excuses, well, they have segments. They've been in segments. It still counts as TV time because they're being used. Them being in segments is still TV time. But that's what other people have told me for a long time. Being in a segment, being on TV in a backstage segment, is still classed as TV time. But apparently it doesn't count now for Saraya? But Saraya having nothing but segments? Oh, is apparently them not using her? She has an absolute bust-up neck, alright? Saraya has a busted-up neck, and she's not gonna wrestle every week. But Seth Rollins has a busted back! Seth Rollins has a busted back, and he still wrestles every week, so that's no excuse! No. Saraya is different to Seth Rollins. A neck injury is far worse than a back injury. And if you don't agree with me, look at the amount of times that people... Look at the amount of careers that have ended due to serious neck injuries. Sure, Shawn Michaels lost his career to a back injury. Randy Orton, he was told his career was over from a back injury. Look at Big E. Look at Big E. He has a serious neck injury, and he hasn't been back since. Which poor Ridge Holland caught a lot of the blame for it, which he didn't deserve all that blame. But that's the problem. Neck injuries are far worse. Neck injuries are far worse than back injuries, and I'm very sorry to say that. Neck injuries are way worse. But again, I just find it so annoying that people try to find any kind of excuse. They're like, oh, but Saraya, she is a full-time wrestler. She's not. She's not a full-time wrestler. She's not. If she was a full-time wrestler, they would have treated her like a full-time wrestler. She's a part-time wrestler. She's part-time. And I think part-time is best suited for her. But of course, and another thing I found annoying was that I compared was I was like, well, like here's the thing, AEW had Saraya win in her home country, but India Hartwell lost in Australia. But again, it's just all these things that I see a lot of people say that try to argue Like, look, even if you don't agree with me, you can just say, look, I don't agree with you, but you know what? That's a fair enough point. But instead, I always get people trying to argue with my points and say, but you know, look at what Tony Khan's been doing. What Tony Khan has been doing is that he's been giving, you know, this new girl named Queen, I don't know how to say her name, Queen somebody, been showcasing this new lady. Thunder Rosa is back. Thunder Rosa is being featured quite heavily. Serena Deeb is now potentially teasing Mercedes Moné coming to the company by calling herself the final boss of AEW and all of the AEW women's division, even though that's technically Toni Storm because she's the champion. And like, you can't just sit there and say, oh, they're not using their women's division to their fullest potential, when they really are. When they really are using their women's division to their fullest potential, and they give all their women time. Always. They always give their women a bunch of time to compete. They always give them time to wrestle. They always give them time. WWE's women's matches are always, they are freaking diva level. Most of them are diva level. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. They always give them diva-esque level matches. But people will always find ways to defend WWE's women's division. Like, oh, like look at last week. They had like several squash matches last week with Chelsea Green and Raquel and Indy and Candice against Shayna and Zoe. Like just a lot of squash matches last week. But WWE's women's division is better than AEW's. I don't know how it is. Like, like they don't have Charlotte Flair. They don't have Becky Lynch. They don't need. They don't have Rhea Ripley. They don't have Asuka. They don't have Kairi. They don't have Io. Do they need them to prove they have a better division? They that's one thing I have found really, really silly, is that I saw people say, oh, but they don't have insert name here. They don't have this. They don't have insert name here. They don't have insert name here or insert name there. And I'm thinking to myself, so? I'm like, so? Like, so what if they don't have that person? That doesn't mean their women's division is terrible. Them not having Io, them not having Charlotte or Becky or Bayley or Asuka, Kairi, Io, that doesn't make their women's divisions, that doesn't make AEW's women's division terrible. It doesn't. It really, really doesn't. Like, AEW can't be successful and popular in their own way. They can't make stars. They can't create their own stars. That's the one thing I find annoying. People are always like, oh, but they need to have big names and big stars to be considered a big company. Serena Deeb isn't a big name. Toni Storm isn't a big name. Britt Baker's not a big name. Shida isn't a big name. Like, come on, seriously? Jamie Hayter, Thunder Rosa? Like, come on, give me a goddamn break. To sit there and say that they need people, they don't have Becky, they don't have Charlotte or Asuka and all that. To sit there and say that is completely stupid. You're basically discounting all the other big names that AEW have. It's like you're saying, well, they're good, but they're not Charlotte Flair. They're not Becky Lynch. They're not Asuka or Io. That's basically what you're saying. You're basically saying they're good, but they're not on the same level as these people. I guarantee you, if people like Thunder Rosa or Britt Baker or Jamie Hayter or Shida were in WWE, you would be putting them on a pedestal. You'd be saying, they're so good, they're such awesome talent. How did AEW fumble these talents? You know, people will be talking about how AEW fumbled them. Like, they literally, look at Jade Cargill. Like, she was an absolute star in AEW. Jade Cargill wouldn't be where she is. She wouldn't be in WWE if it wasn't for her run in AEW. And then people have the gall to say AEW fumbled Jade Cargill. Like, I'm sorry, but I find that funny. People have the nerve to say AEW fumbled Jade Cargill, yet she was undefeated for 51 consecutive matches. And she was the first ever TBS champion. But yeah, they fumbled her. Sure, they fumbled Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill hasn't even wrestled on TV yet in WWE. Sure, she wrestled at the Royal Rumble, but good grief, but at least AEW still used her every week. At least AEW still had Jade Cargill consistently wrestle, even if she was green as grass. Even if she was green as grass, they just gave her short matches. Now that's when short matches make sense for someone like a Jade Cargill. That's when short matches make more sense. So then that way Jade can have short bursts. But as I said, WWE's women's division are all about short matches. So Jade Cargill shouldn't have any problems with having a couple, like a 60-second match or a couple of, or like a minute or two in the ring. Like, she shouldn't have, like, it shouldn't be that big of a problem for her in WWE, because that's basically what WWE does on a week-to-week basis. Have women compete weekly, like in 2-minute matches. Hell, Jesus Christ! Hell, like, people compare WWE's women's wrestlers nowadays to the frickin' Divas era. I mean, Jesus Christ! I've watched the WWE through the Divas era. And I can sit here and say that there have been Divas matches that have lasted longer than most of the women's matches today. I've seen Kelly Kelly and Eve Torres and Maurice, Melina, Mickie James, Michelle McCool. Like, I've seen a lot of the women back in the Divas era wrestle have longer matches than what we see today. Like, and to compare today's women's wrestling to the Divas era is absolutely crazy, because the Divas era, they still had lengthy matches. Like, to sit there and say, oh, but when Kelly and Eve and the Bellas and Beth and Maurice and all those people were around, that's what we were getting. We were getting short-ass matches every week. But at least back then, they actually still did have decently long matches. They did still have decently long matches, despite that. A lot of the Diva-esque matches back then still lasted longer than most of the women's matches of today, I'll tell you that. But all I'm saying is, AEW, they give all their women time. They give all their women time. No matter what, they always give them all a decent-esque amount of time. Like they showcase, like that new girl they've recently debuted. I'm not sure, all I know is that her name is Queen somebody. But yeah, like, they still give her decent amount of TV time. They still give her decently amount of time in the ring to show what she can do. Like, why debut her and only to put her in squash matches just to be fed and just to have squash matches? You know what I'm saying? That's why I say AEW's women's division is better, because at least they give all their women TV time. They give them all time to wrestle, to showcase what they can do in the ring. That's what AEW's women's division does far better. They don't exclusively make long matches. They don't have long matches be exclusive to premium live events. Because that's my biggest problem with WWE at the moment. My biggest problem with WWE at the moment is basically that. They only have long matches. They'll only give out long matches to, like, the Beckys, the Nias. Like the Beckys and the Nias, the Ios and all that. Like, they'll only give long matches to the bigger names. Or, when it's a premium live event, that's when they will deliver big matches. And I swear to God, man, I don't know how people can sit there and say Becky Lynch and Nia Jax was a good match. It's a typical Nia Jax match. It's a typical Nia match. Even the match she had with Rhea Ripley, it was so typical. It was such a typical Nia Jax match. Nia Jax dominates. The babyface makes the heroic comeback and win. Like, seriously, it's so repetitive. But people have to have the goal to say Nia Jax has gotten better. But people have the goal to say Nia Jax has greatly improved as an in-ring performer when basically her matches are basically the exact same thing. Every single week, it's the same thing. Try changing it up. But Patrick, that's Nia's purpose. She's a big girl. She's supposed to dominate her opponents. Well, that's not always true. The bigger and stronger people don't always dominate. The bigger and stronger people don't always dominate their matches. But I'm just saying, it's greatly repetitive. I don't think even Nyla Rose does that. And again, people again try to say WWE's women's division is better when clearly their women get less amount of time than AEW's do. Like, friggin' Deonna Purrazzo and Toni Storm had a tremendously fun match. like, you're not gonna say Mariah May is good for the AEW women's division? Like, Mariah May is awesome. I've seen a lot of people compare Mariah May to Tiffany Stratton. And I'm gonna sit here and say this right now, and you can argue with me if you want. I'm gonna sit here and say Mariah May is far superior to Tiffany Stratton. I'm gonna say Mariah May is a far better wrestler than Tiffany Stratton. Like I've seen those two get compared all the time, and I'm like, Mariah May is way better than Tiffany Stratton. Like, Mariah May is way better than Tiffany Stratton. So I just think that's hilarious. People, don't forget about Deonna Purrazzo. Like, she's in AEW now. How can people sit there and say Deonna Purrazzo isn't a great addition to the AEW women's division? And for crying out loud, AEW is about to get the biggest star in all of women's wrestling, Mercedes Moné, also known to WWE fans, Sasha Banks. They're about to get her. And for people to sit there and say AEW's women's division is shit, and it's not that very good, obviously need their head examined. Because they've got, as I've said, they've got Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker, Shida, Saraya, Anna Jay. Like Ty Mello when she eventually comes back. Like, there are so many big names. Deonna Purrazzo, Toni Storm, Mariah May. It just goes on and on and on with the amount of people AEW's women's division have. And to sit there and say WWE's is far better, like, I'm sorry. It's not. All their women get time. All their women are given time to wrestle. All of them are given time to compete and showcase what they can do. And for people just to sit there and say WWE's women's division is better is absolutely crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy to me. It really is. I mean, if you want to say WWE's women's division is better, that's fine. It's your opinion. But you just can't sit there. You gotta look at the booking, okay? You gotta look at the booking. Like, there are so many short-ass matches that we get from the women's division. Hell, the women on Raw, Katana and Kaden, were given half an entrance. Shayna and Zoe were given a jobber entrance. Naomi was given a jobber entrance. Tiffany was given half an entrance. Tiffany and Naomi's match was 3 minutes long, mainly because The Rock didn't want to shut up from flapping his gums. People fail to realize that the men's division in WWE, Triple H gives the men way too much time. Triple H gives the men way too much time. They let them talk for about half an hour during the first hour, instead of just focusing on letting the women go out there and wrestle. Like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy that the women's division barely get any time. But Patrick, Nia, and Becky Lynch were given a lot of time. Yeah, that's Becky and Nia. Like what I just said before. If you're not Rhea, if you're not Becky, if you're not Nia, you're not Io, if you're not any of the top stars, you will given... Like, again, if you're not one of the bigger names, you're going to get time. If you're one of the bigger stars, of course you're going to get time. Give time to Indy and Candice. Give time to Katana and Kaden. Give time to other women who could benefit. Not even Becky Lynch in her NXT Women's title reign was enough to give them enough time to showcase what Indy Hartwell and Tegan Knox and all these other girls could do. Their matches were about at least 8 minutes long. Still not incredibly long, but I guess it's decent amount of time. But still, if you're not one of the bigger names, of course you're not going to get time. Of course, if you're not one of the bigger names, of course you're not going to get time. Anyway, that's the end of this video. That's the end of this ramble. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments and tell me how completely wrong I am and how I'm a big idiot and how wrong I am and all that stuff. But regardless, this is all I've got for you guys. This is just my opinion. You don't have to agree, but make sure you're respectable about it in the comments. Thank you all for joining in for this video, and I'll see you all next time.